Hello, you're watching the Pat Sheranian Show, and my guest today, I'm so excited about Joy Bischoff. How are you?
Wonderful, Pat.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
You got it right.
All right. Joy and I met a few months ago, and she is a great, great person, and a lot of interesting things going on that we're going to share with you today. First, let me thank my sponsor, the Kyani Company, Kyani. The products are a sunrise, which is filled with blueberries and good fruits and minerals and vitamins, a sunset, which is omega-3 pure fish oil, and no mercury, which is really great, and also Nitro FX, which is a great product to give tons of energy. I've been on these products for 14 months. I stopped taking all medications the first month for diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and for arthritis. And I am so fortunate to have spent this last 14 months healthier and happier and more energy than I've had in years. So I'm grateful to them. If you would like to know more about Kyani, please call 801-362-9552. 801-362-9552. For those of you watching on your computer, you're on pat.utahvalleylive.com. And if you're on radio, you're on KHQN 1480 AM. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I want to give a shout out to start with. Over the years, I have driven new cars and old cars and cars that made me crazy. And some years ago, I had the good fortune to be able to start driving Cadillacs, and I've been very excited about that. And now I'm going to be making a change. But first, I want to thank some people that have really, really been good to me. Harmon's Cadillac in Provo, they're located at 100 North and 470 West, just east of State Street and 100 North. These guys have been wonderful to me in the service and the body departments also, but particularly the service department. You know, whine, whine, whine. This is wrong. This is wrong. Can't get it fixed. Oh, what do I do now? And I just want to give a shout out to some of the really very talented people there. Jeremy, who has worked on my car forever, is a world-class tech through the GM. We've been with GM for 16 years of training and continuous training. I mean, after 16 years, he's still learning as things change. Jeremy, thank you so much. And then also in the service department, the team is Johnny and Josh and Dan, and they've been absolutely great at helping not only me, but everybody for 49 years of good service. We appreciate that. Now, something I didn't know, I just made an assumption that they only worked on the cars they sold, which is not true. They work on all makes and models of GM, Chevy, Buick, Cadillac, GMC, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, cars and trucks. So give these guys a call, talk to them. The number is 801-373-3031, and let them know that you heard about them from me. I'd appreciate that because they've really taken awfully good care of it. Let's see, awfully good doesn't work. They've really taken wonderful care of me over the years, and I appreciate them. So, guys, thank you so much for the help you've given me. Have a great day. All right, now let's talk about you, lady.
All right.
When I first met Joy, she had so much on her plate, and she was talking so fast that I practically said, stop just a minute. Let's go back and catch something. But she is into several things that I really love, and she's been a student of Hugh Nibley's. Not just a student, it's become almost it's just a fixation at this point. She is really into this, and she's become a great, great person to be able to pass along information. We can hear things, we can read things, but retaining enough of it so that we can share that with someone is a talent, and she has that talent.
Thank you, Pat.
So I'm going to ask you if you'll share with our audience some of the, your life that has brought you up to this point. She's going to be talking about seminars that are coming up, some books that are coming up, some things that are happening. But let's talk about how you got where you are, because that really interests me a lot. I love hearing about people and how they got to where they are.
All right. Well, that's a long story. I'll try to shorten it.
We shorten it down
very
a little bit.
short.
We got an hour.
What brings me to have studied and researched and written so much about Dr. Nibley, first was the scriptures. After my mission, I took about 10 years to mostly just stick with the scriptures. I saw people going off that narrow line, and I wanted to be very careful myself. And so I spent a lot of time just focused on the Book of Mormon always, the power that that brings into my life. I want to testify of right from the start. I found if I go more than a few days without it, I do not feel that spirit of protection and peace that passeth understanding to be with people. But I also love to study the other scriptures. And as time went by, the Old Testament grabbed my attention more and more as I began to see a pattern in many of the stories of the lives of the Old Testament prophets and the things that happened to Israel. And I understood that there was a lot more depth to those stories than face value seemed to indicate. And after about 10 years, I felt secure enough to want to branch out, and I began studying Dr. Nibley's works. I had read some of his things when I was little, but hadn't done much in my adulthood.
So now that you have no time whatsoever, you decided to take on Nibley. Now, I'm not a student of Nibley's. I love Nibley.
You love him.
I haven't studied that much because to read Nibley, you don't read Nibley. You look at a line and then you ponder. And then you say, okay, I can read that. Okay. And then you ponder some more. What did he really say? What was the intent here? This is not a person that you pick up a book and you read it and you say, oh, that was nice, because it requires that you study and research and ponder and think and ponder some more.
Right.
He's fascinating.
Oh, he is, but it
fascinating.
Is. And I had to read his books again and again. The first time I read Temple and Cosmos, I was completely blown away, a little shook up. But also very excited because I noticed that pattern that I begun to identify in the Old Testament and tying in with the Book of Mormon and all of the other scriptures was in his books. And I saw that he not only knew what I knew, but he knew a lot more. First time through, I thought I got about 10% of it. And the second time, maybe 40, and then maybe 60. It went up. I had to really research.
We should mention that Brother Nibley, Nibley, not read.
Spoke. He read 25 languages. Is that
right? No, I'm getting ready to say he's passed away.
Oh, he has passed away.
And yes. It's been, we miss him.
Very much. Very much, yes.
Hugh Nibley. I called him Reed, and that's his brother. It's Hugh Nibley.
Right.
And he has gone probably, 3-4 years now?
Yes, and it wasn't until after he died that his Opus Magnus came out, One Eternal Round. So that was sad, but at least it came out.
It came out. Good. All right, yes. We got that cleared up. So let's keep going with you and how you got involved in this.
Okay. Well, so what happened basically is a lot of people through the years, knowing that I studied ancient cultures, that I love to study Egyptology, and also all of the ancient mythologies from all over the world, they would ask me to explain Nibley. They would read it and not get much out of it.
It's difficult. You have to really think about what you're reading.
So I began to focus on trying to help explain his writings to some people and understand them. And then I returned to school. When my husband was going to school, we had little kids, so I just went slowly, a couple classes at a time. But it was wonderful that way because I was able to go to BYU, the religion department of the library, and pour through all of these books and cheat. Because scribbled,
you could look up the answers and write notes.
Scribbled in all those margins were Nibley thoughts over.
You told us that. Yeah,
yes.
That's great.
Probably 3/4 of the books that I would pour through, because I would quickly go through dozens and dozens of books for each of my reports, and I would pick his brain by the little things that he had written in the margin, and that opened up whole new worlds and helped tie things together for me.
How do you know where to start when somebody says, tell me about Hugh Nibley, Dr. Hugh Nibley?
Good question. And where I start is by saying, look at what was his focus. He wrote that his main focus was the Great New Year Rite. And so if a man who read 25 languages and many people said was the most knowledgeable man in the world.
I know he had memorized the Old Testament and the New Testament and the Book of Mormon and the Pearl of Great Price. And he memorized all of these scriptures by putting one scripture at a time in his pocket.
Yes, walking around campus with his face down.
He would read this scripture over and over, and that's how you want to do it. If you want to memorize anything, over and over and over, and he was a classic. Yes. When it came to studying the scriptures, there aren't many that could match that worldwide.
No, not many have his brain cells. I lack them, but I just work harder.
Well, we all
learn
do.
a little.
Okay, now, Okay, so you focused on what he focused on.
Right, Great New Year Rite.
All right, let's talk about that. So understanding Nibley takes what?
Okay, understanding Nibley, you have to look at what was important to him, because what happened was he identified a pattern, and that pattern is found in the 3 pillars of the gospel. And so that pattern, I came to realize, was found in the New Year Rite, which he says ties all into the temple, because every endowment goes back as if it was the very moment of the very first of New Year, because time is circular, it's cyclical, it is not linear in the eternal scheme of things.
Okay.
So I understood that I had to learn more about the New Year Rite and how it tied into the temple. So I pursued that, and within that are found the mysteries of the gospel, the true mysteries of the gospel, the important ones that we should deal with, not the weird ones, which are the basics of the gospel.
Right.
Understanding their real depth, because they are deep and they are very beautiful. Okay, so he was able to identify that. And so I try to boil that down for people and help them to understand how it's all cyclical.
Well,
and
you mentioned it that about the universe, his structure of the universe. So
yes, I did.
you're going to give us the whole lesson this morning?
I'm not going to have time for that, but I am going to introduce in a nutshell, the very basics. But what's so exciting?
That's a talent in itself, girl, getting that boiled down. Nibley's hard to boil down.
I was always an abstract person to grab something from the left and the right and up and down and tie it together. And when I am learning what I hope to be a truth, what I do is I set it on the shelf in my mind, and I wait for things to go click, click, click to see if it fits in as a puzzle piece to the gospel.
And it does.
And it has to fit with what the primary kids are learning, or I toss it out, and it certainly does. And what's very exciting about this process is when you study Nibley and learn the pattern, then you can find yourself in prophecy. You can find out where we are now in prophecy, and in general, where we're headed, because it is a process that is cyclical, and it can happen in a person's life. It can happen in a life of a culture. And now we're in the bigger circle of what's happening in this whole earth life, and many cycles are coming all together right now at once. So we can have a real key to unlocking prophecy by knowing this pattern.
You talked, when I heard Joy last about a month ago, you talked about 2012.
Yes, I will
Are
be
we
getting
going to
that.
go into that a little bit?
Yes.
Are we going to have time to get there? I know you're
We are
trying
going
to
to
follow
get
an
there.
outline here, and I'm going all over the place.
No, that's okay, because it is interesting. But let me tell you the things that I learned most from understanding this pattern that Nibley identified. 4 things, I call them the 4 Ps: purpose, prophecy, protection, and peace. All right, so first, purpose. Why do we need these things? Why do we need to understand it? It's all about the process of sanctification, and that's crucial to us because knowledge is power, and we know that we can't be saved in ignorance, as we learn in the Doctrine and Covenants 131.
Absolutely.
So the second is prophecy. So like I was saying, these cycles help us to understand what's going on, and if we better understand what's going on, we're in a better position to protect our loved ones. And that is something that a lot of people are interested in today.
Well, can we talk a little bit about that?
I will get to that. Just let me just say that the 4th one is...
She's trying to cram a
I'm trying to get
course,
this.
maybe a 9-month course into
just a few minutes.
A few minutes here. So
the final one is peace, and that is the fruit.
Let's
to
name
all
them
of
again.
this.
Name the 4 again.
All right, the 4 are purpose, prophecy, protection,
okay, protection,
and peace. That's the reward, and that's the fruit that we can get if we learn how to stand in holy places, because that is what we are trying to do. Okay, so let me tell you about the protection part, because that is what people keep coming at me with. There's a quick story about my bishop when I was down in Moapa Valley in southern Nevada recently, is where we lived. And his father would stay with him in the winter, and he used to be the bishop there. And he'd been a gospel doctrine teacher for 28 years, and so I was always nervous when he came to my class. But he knew I was always working hard to not bring in Nibley, to not sneak him in, because I wanted to, and I didn't let myself hardly ever. And so he made an appointment one day and came over to talk to me, to ask me to explain Nibley, because he wanted to begin studying his books. And so I was so excited. I mean, there's nothing I'd rather do than talk Nibley with people. And so I tried to help him see some of the most exciting things that came from the identification of this pattern. But he stopped me, and he looked very pensive and very concerned. And he said, "Just wait." And he was quiet a moment. And I said, "What's wrong, Bishop?" He said, you know, this is fascinating, and I know that it's interesting, and I should be more interested. But after hearing these things, I have to tell you, all I want to know is how do I protect my loved ones?
Uh-huh.
And so that began me on a journey to help take this and explain it in a way that we can protect our families.
When I hear the word protect, I think of earthquakes and things that are happening to our earth.
Right.
And floods and so forth. And I think of car accidents and fires, and I think of things that are physical.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you're explaining this, it's spiritual. How to protect ourselves, how to be protected spiritually. And when you tie Nibley into that, then, okay, how then does he suggest,
all right,
okay, that we are protected or that we can protect our families?
The way it's done actually can help with actual physical protection too, if we're living close to the Spirit, unless someone is called by the Spirit to cross the veil and go to the other side of the veil because it's their time, we can count on miracles, real protection. There was a story I read once about terrible hail that came and wiped out a lot of crops. But this family knelt together and in unity and the Spirit of Zion, which is one of the keys. They prayed for protection. They went out after the storm, and there was a line of hail all around the border boundaries of their property, and none touched their crops.
The interesting
That's
thing
rare
is,
that it can happen.
It does happen. It happens more than you might think as we get in the car and
yes,
fervently pray that we arrive safe wherever we're going. I think a lot of people pray all day long and don't realize really that they may be offering a prayer because they're not kneeling or formal. But we do. We have a prayer all the time for protection. And it works. I know situations similar to the one you just described.
yes.
And for what reason, I don't know, but I certainly have been raised to believe that miracles are ongoing.
Yes.
That certainly our Father in heaven he just didn't wake up one day and say, hey, no more miracles for you on earth. I think they're ongoing, and there is protection. And it's interesting that Nibley would focus on that, but I am very curious. Are we going to have time to talk about that?
We will. We
Okay.
will.
Right.
This protection is more spiritual than physical, but we just happen to be living in a day where there are temples dotting the earth.
And more coming.
And more coming. And there have never been temples like this, authorized temples, any time in the history of the world. And it's no coincidence, because we are now in a time of last day prophecies coming to pass where we need those temples because they have an ordering power, the ability to bring order out of chaos.
There are people listening perhaps that are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we are referring to that as the church and the LDS, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints temples that are all over the world. And they are not meeting houses per se like a neighborhood church building. They are for not secret ordinances, but sacred ordinances, and that's what you're referring to.
Exactly, exactly. So what Brother Nibley helped us to understand was that there is a structure to the universe, as you were mentioning, and that very structure can be physical or spiritual, and the two will eventually tie in together with the resurrection and this eternal progression that we're on the path towards. So I could take over an hour talking about the structure of the universe and the science behind it. We don't have time now to do that.
I had an opportunity to hear her do that. I wish we had time, so we're going to get you back again. But let's cover what we can.
Just the nutshell.
Just a little bit about this, because I know you're going to be doing some seminars and people are going to want to know what they can attend.
Right.
So let's hear. I'll quit talking for about
that's okay.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe.
So if you want a wheel to turn and not break, if you want it to be stable, to create stability, you have to have at least 4 spokes, and you have to have them in 4 opposite directions. Now, these 4 cardinal directions are something that people run into constantly when they study ancient cultures and ancient religions and mythologies. In Egyptology, they're the 4 sons of Horus. They represent the 4 cardinal directions and a lot of other things. But it's all boiled down to stability and creating a structure that will help things stay in order and not crumble to chaos. So for the universe, what creates that stability is the same thing that creates it for our galaxy, for families, for the church, for the earth, even down to the tiniest thing. And it's based on this. first I'll start with the upper and the lower part of that stem of stability.
Okay, we've got the circle.
We've got the
and we've
stability.
got the crossbars
right.
in the middle.
Right.
Okay.
So we're going to go to the bottom of that crossbar. Thank you. And that one is the part of the law of opposites that is evil or dark or heavy. And the word in Hebrew for heavy is has all the same root letters as glory, because the opposite of that is heaven, light, and glory.
At the other end.
At the other end. So for the bottom, you have, it's represented in mythology by things like the Tiamat monster, the dragon, the whale, the crocodile, things that are down there that eat up corruption, and they can break it down. So the heavy things stay there as a lodestone and create the gravity, like the black hole that holds everything in place in our galaxy, and we need it. But it's a dangerous thing,
Right.
and it's dark and in there. Now, the opposite end is good. So here we have good and evil, which we had to live. We had to have the fall so that we would be able to set up the stability of the law of opposites between good and evil, with evil at the base and good at the top, represented by heaven and by light and by wings and angels and eagles and all kinds of hawks, all kinds of wonderful things in ancient mythology and in the gospel. And so now we have the other crossbar, the other law of opposites, which is the higher law. It's a celestial law. The terrestrial people also live under the wings and protection and safety of that celestial law. We can read about it in the Doctrine and Covenants. And on one side, the east side, you have the male. And on the west side, you have the symbol of the female, the bridegroom and the bride. Now we know that Christ is the bridegroom, and he lifts us up. 3 Nephi 27:14, he was lifted up that he may lift all men to Christ. He brings us into that higher sheepfold of protection and cleanses us from that dark place down at the bottom. And then the church, one of the names that we have from the scriptures for the sanctified members of the church is the Church of the Firstborn, or the Bride of Christ. And in the unity of Zion, that bride has a work to do in the last days, and that is one of the main reasons that I have chosen to come out of the obscurity of my little office, where I just like to research and write and study quietly and talk to people, because I have to share the message with the people. What Brother Nibley was saying is our responsibility as a member of the Bride of Christ to prepare for the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ.
And we should all be doing that. But you're right. We don't know how. We know some things.
Yes.
Nibley knew more things.
Yes, he
and
knew
you
more.
have now discovered those in a way that we can understand. You're going to tell us some today?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
A couple of things. Now, we know, of course, that our church leaders are well aware of this. And some people ask me, why aren't they talking about this? Why don't they say the things that Nibley does? Well, they used to have him come into their meetings a lot and teach the things that he knew. But of course, they have the blessing of the right to look into heaven for 5 minutes and learn more than anyone could ever by reading, as Joseph Smith said. And no one needs to tell them anything. But they don't come out with all of these details very much, because people start riding hobby horses, that pendulum swings, and the church members, some of them will become fanatical about it.
People aren't always ready.
They're ready for the basics from the leaders. And also, anti-Mormons can have a field day because they can pick this stuff apart in a way that maybe isn't intended. And it's better that it's done quietly for those who have ears to hear.
Oh.
Yes, it is sacred. And Brother Nibley tried to be very careful, and I also try to be careful. So a lot of the things that I talk about, it's up to the listener to plug that in to the temple, connect the dots themselves. I don't do much of that because that is sacred ground, and I do try to be careful.
Let the individual.
Right.
And that's part of the free agency that we have to make these choices. All right. So I mentioned a little early about 2012. Are we going to go there for just a minute?
All right. We'll go ahead and go there.
And also, you mentioned the New Year's rite.
Yes. That takes us right there.
Okay. Let's do that.
Okay. Last year, one of my professors at BYU wanted to know what the book was that I was writing. And I was nervous to tell him because, frankly, in the academic world, you can't mention 2012. It's a no-no. Brother Nibley understood that, so he skirts around it constantly, but he talks about it. He talks about the 26,000-year cycle, which is a smaller one of 20 260,000 cycle, 26 million cycle. He talks about all of these things. He talks about them being the New Year rite, that everything is cyclical, that it all ties to the temple. He knew all about this, but he was very careful because it is difficult to talk about 2012 in the academic world. Well, I can do it because I wasn't able to go on and get my PhD like I was hoping and teach religion. So I was able to go into this area of study, and I'm glad that I did because people need to know about it. It isn't absolutely necessary. People don't have to know about it, but it is important, and it's good because it
gives you a platform to make choices.
It does.
If you have knowledge, you can make more intelligent choices.
Right.
And I think that's Joy was in a room full of women, and some of them had never heard any of this. It was really interesting. You and I had spoken before, and I had some background, and it can be very frightening.
Right.
So can we launch a little bit into it?
I try to take the fear out of it.
Okay.
Because I tell them if you understand the protection that's possible, it's wonderful and it's exciting. See, 2012, as Boyd K. Packer said in the last conference, is certainly not the end of the world. In fact, he said it will be a long time away. And I've been trying to tell people that for a long time. All those verses that say in the last days people will begin to eat and drink and be merry, say the Lord delayeth his coming. That's going to happen. But still, we don't need to be focused on the second coming. There are a lot of events that we need to prepare for beforehand. 2012 shows us where we are in those events. So let me touch a little bit on that. Okay. I had a son-in-law who was always trying to get me to nail down what the bottom line of my book was all about. And I would say to Dennis, it's about this and this and this and this and this. And he would like, no, bottom line it. And I worked for years to do that. And I finally did with Brother Nibley's help. Actually, I tried to stay away from Nibley for a few years and do just my own research. I went into Egyptology and all of the ancient works, and it brought me to quantum physics, and I've been studying that for 5 years.
But we're going to touch on that today.
Okay, we'll touch on that.
Okay.
And it helped bring me to understand that the process of the New Year rite, if you take it for an individual, is all about receiving the endowment and progressing through sanctification up Jacob's ladder until you are prepared spiritually for the glory that you will be clothed upon in the resurrection. It's moving from the fallen telestial state back to that terrestrial state that the Garden of Eden was in. The temple is a terrestrial place. It is lifted from the fall through the power of God. So what 2012 is really about, bottom line cut through it all, is the earth will take a step, the first step, to move from the fallen telestial state back to the terrestrial state. And this needs to happen in preparation for the second coming, because as we know, things are prepared first spiritually before they are prepared physically. And so the return of the political kingdom of Jesus Christ, as we learn about, and we know that it'll be the return of the throne of David. There's so much about David in the last days, his Davidic role, and we read in The Millennial Messiah by Bruce R. McConkie that it is Jesus Christ who is that Davidic figure. There may be others who have that name and play a role, but he is the last days David. The kingship will be placed upon him, and he will have his political kingdom come forth. But first is the establishment of his throne. This is what's so exciting about 2012.
Okay.
The Mayans said that throne is the throne of Quetzalcoatl. And as church members, we know that Christ visited the Americas, and Quetzalcoatl was one of the names that he was given, Kukulkan and other names. But they say the throne, the political throne of Quetzalcoatl, returns winter solstice 2012.
What does that mean?
What it means, let me say, they also say that it is the throne of Venus, that Quetzalcoatl is Venus. And we know that Venus is one of the symbols for Jesus Christ. So it is no coincidence. Let me throw this in really quick. The Mayans, most of the stelae and the things that they were preparing to teach about 2012 just happened to be built and made in that first century AD, some of them in 41, 43 AD in Central America. And the Book of Mormon says that all the people in that land at that time were converted to the church. So these things are being written by church members who had been visited by Christ, who had amazing information, the things that the Jaredites had. So I think we should listen to what they had to say. And they say that The return of his throne means it is when this earth goes to a more spiritual, higher condition and is preparing for the resurrection of mankind.
December 21st, 2012.
Yes.
Okay. And
That's in a nutshell.
But what are we going to do? What is our personal responsibility? And how will we know really what to do, when to do it? And part of this goes back to this protection. It's instinct in all of us to protect our families.
Yes. All right. That is the key. Now, what happens is, as the bride of Christ, we do have a role to play, and it ties into Deseret and what Deseret really means, and that protective canopy. I can't go into it too deeply. They'll need to come to the seminars to get the full story.
Good.
But the protection that comes is represented by Moses and the Israelites when they were taken into a place of protection during a dangerous time into the wilderness. And they had at the center place that tabernacle. And Brother Nibley says that lion couch of sacrifice, that tabernacle, is like the throne, the lion throne. It's a tomb and a womb to die and be reborn into a higher state. And that's what the earth will do at this time. It will die symbolically like we do in baptism.
Well, but I go right straight to war.
Right. And that's what we need the protection for, because these things are going to happen. And if we can get a canopy of protection around our family, and if we can stand in holy places and become born again, sanctified through Jesus Christ, then we can have that power of protection, and it can actually come around our loved ones who are around us and with us, and they can have that influence and that protection. And then what we can do, and this is a key, we can do just what the prophet said to do in our last conference, which he also said a couple of years ago, and I talked about with the ladies group. We can pray for the prophet. He's not a selfish man. He's not up there saying, pray for me. He knows if we throw the pebble into the middle, the ripples will come back. And our canopies of protection can connect with all of the members of Zion, spiritual Zion, around the prophet and the Savior Jesus Christ to create a whole tent.
So let's say that the person hasn't heard about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Maybe they've heard about it and they haven't joined, or they don't have full understanding. Certainly we've got politicians out there as recent as a few days ago calling the fact that we are all Christians, but he's a non-believer, so he says we're not Christians. And I don't agree with that, of course. In fact, I took great offense, and there are letters all over the internet now rebutting that. So, but let's say that somebody is concerned. Should they be frightened? Because it feels fearful.
Right.
If you talk about war to me, I was a mere child during the Second World War. I'm not even hardly born. And, but it was frightening.
Right.
And so in this, I believe this country, as long as we believe under God, that this should be and has been dedicated to be a peaceful, free country. And yet we're scattered all over in various wars. Are you telling us to prepare because it's coming to our land?
Oh,
we have terrorists doing awful things.
Absolutely. And in the seminar, I will explain how, in the Book of Mormon, the Nephite forts help teach us the principles of how to create this canopy of protection, to have the armor of God, to be standing in holy places. Those forts are powerful symbols of how to prepare for when the enemy comes, for how you will be kept
I want you
safe.
to tell me all right now. I don't want to have to sit through your seminar. I want to know right this minute.
It's another way to explain it is bringing people into the protective boughs of the tree of life. Okay. We need to become rooted in to Christ, and non-members can become rooted into Christ, and they can also have the Spirit of Christ strongly, and they are an important part of bringing about the protection for the earth. We believe that in the millennium there will be church members, and there will be wonderful, righteous non-church members also who love the Savior and are righteous, and we will work with them in helping to create and draw down that protective power of Christ.
Today, my guest, thank goodness, is Joy Bischoff. And did I say it right again?
Yes.
I keep thinking I'm saying it wrong. Joy Bischoff, Bischoff. Is that right? Did we get it? Now, how can people find you, Joy? Because you know that they're going to tell friends about this and they're curious. I certainly was. You've got a website they can go to that they can write down, or a phone number. Let's let people start
All
getting
right.
pen and paper and get this written down, because your seminars are coming up when?
Seminars are coming up. We have the one in the middle of November. We have a wonderful lady that has a very large home that will seat 50 people. And
So the first 50 people signing
so
up.
the first 50 people that call, yes. Now, to get information, to receive information on that, she doesn't want her address put out or her
course
name.
not.
But to receive information on that, you can email at understandingnibbley@gmail.com. And I will send you the information on that. It will be a 4-hour seminar on a Saturday, and we'll be able to really break these things down and
Is
get
there
into
a
some
cost
good
involved?
stuff. Yes, there'll be $25 for 4 hours.
You're kidding.
No, this is introductory. We're just beginning, and so people are getting lucky. It will go up as
price
we
will
get.
go up.
It will go up, but frankly, right now I'm far more interested in getting the message out.
All right, let's
than the
give it
money
again.
aspect.
Understanding Nibley, Nibley,
Uh-huh.
at gmail.com.
At gmail.com, and we'll have one then. And we are also looking for people.
So do you get that email so that you can personally answer
Yes,
people
I will personally
and
answer them.
any questions?
Yes.
Also, I might mention on pat.utahvalleylive.com, we have a chat room. And so if you're listening on the radio, great. But we don't have a phone you can call in on, but you can write this down and join us during the chat. Or you can call 801-362-9552. Can't take that on the air, but I can certainly call back and give you answers or direct you to anything that you've heard here on the today's show with Joy. So our chat room, pat.utahvalleylive.com. Make a comment, ask a question. We'll be happy to try and answer for you. And then if you really want to get the whole scoop, sometime in the middle of November, do we have a date on that, exact date?
No, she still is trying to decide between 2 dates, so we'll get that to people. But we're also looking for people to host these, and their family gets to come free, so that's a good incentive to that.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so if you have a large facility or a large home that you can hold these seminars, are we going to try and cram a lot in 4 hours? I mean, you can't do your whole thing in 4 hours.
I can't do the whole thing. I'm going to do 2 sets because there's a lot to understand about the year 2012, and the whole year of 2012, I want to hold seminars to let people know what it all is about. There's unbelievably exciting things involved in this.
I know. I heard some of them. I was taking furious notes, and because there were 50 people in the room, I couldn't ask all the questions I wanted to ask. So let's do that again. Understandingnibley@gmail.com, 801-362-9552, or you can chat today, ask questions online, pat.utahvalleylive.com. Okay, and we appreciate the folks over at KHQN. Did I do that right? What am I doing today? I was busy all morning. KHQN, which is 1480 AM on your radio dial. If you happen to be in your car, we appreciate your listening, or at home. I'm going to just take another little break here and thank the Kyani sponsors. Next week, we will have a list of all of our sponsors who've been on the air with us, talking about their books that they are selling or other things, or just the Utah Valley area. We have the convention people. They come on and tell us what's going on in tourism and happening. So we're going to try and get those all on the air for you, and a little bit more organized about that. But I do want to thank the Kyani people, Kyani. And if you're interested in knowing about the 3 wonderful products that have changed my life and given me incredible energy, help lose weight, which I'm still working on. It's a forever thing, I've decided, but it's okay because I feel so good. I am swimming more. I'm more active. Yesterday, I did the primary penny drive for my ward, and I took my street, which was the largest block, and I just zipped right around and got through that, and I went, wow. I haven't done that for a while. And with all the energy, thanks to Kyani, so thank you for that. Now, we're going to segue over into your magnets and
Right.
what that all means. And I don't know if you're going to try and tie that in with Nibley.
I sure am. That's
Okay,
where I learned it.
let's go. Okay.
All right. Last winter, when I was taking my senior seminar class in Ancient Near Eastern Studies, I did a paper on the firmament. And much to my delight, the idea and concept behind the firmament tied everything in. That's that special protective space. And Brother Perry, our expert in Hebrew worldwide, confirmed with me that he agreed that firmament means a terrestrial temple-like state. But he says, but People don't know that. It's been argued for thousands of years, and no one's been able to figure out what it is. Well, Nibley did. He explains it, and it ties into all of this stuff. And the concepts that I learned behind that, and the even the sacred architecture of how they would have this crystal throne in the middle with the blue sea representation of the floor beneath it, and so many concepts that I learned, especially with the quantum physics, helped me to come to an understanding of how to put together an outward physical manifestation of the inward spiritual process. So I am very excited about this, and I will let you know how that came about quickly, if I can.
Please.
While I was finishing up this paper, much to my dismay and the dismay of the world, we had the terrible accident over in Japan with the earthquake and the tsunami.
So this was recent.
This was in March.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. And we had a nuclear disaster happen in Fukushima. Well, I had a very bad feeling about that. And a few nights after that happened, I woke in the middle of the night, and I had the impression to go turn on the television, which I did. I went out and I turned it on just in time to see an explosion, a terrible explosion, which hardly anybody sees, because by the next morning they'd taken it off. Then they would put the first explosion on, which was a hydrogen explosion with the white clouds. But this one was black, and there was streaming chemical red coming out from out of it, and I knew that it was bad because I'd been studying nuclear explosions and what this was all about.
So we're talking radiation?
Yes, and the press was being quite open about what was going on. They wouldn't show that one again because that was very frightening to people. And with the chemical red, that means plutonium, and a lot of people know that. So they didn't want to put that much out there. But they were being quite open for the first few days until the head of the UN Nuclear Commission went to Fukushima to look into the accident. Within hours of him being there, there was almost a complete news blackout about it. People kept saying, oh, no, it's all over the news. No, not like it was. They were blacking out the true story and the full story, and they were playing it down. And when I would mention this to people, I got the strangest reaction, because I'm Republican, I'm very conservative, I've always been pro-nuclear, and people would go, oh, you're anti-nuclear, and I'd say, no, I'm not, but I want the truth about what just happened in Fukushima. This has nothing to do with pro or anti-nuclear anything.
So this was a very political...
People politicized it. And so many of my conservative friends would not even listen to me. And they thought the press was playing it up. It was just the opposite. And I started to have to search to find the true story. Europe was still, they were putting out map projections showing the plumes of radiation that would come over the United States and the trade winds and how it would hit us, until a month later, the Japanese government asked them to please stop. It really pressured them. And so then they stopped. But there were bad things going on. And we learned at the end of May, the Japanese government finally came out and said there were 3 full meltdowns in that first week. And they said they did not want to tell the people because they would panic, and they did not want it to hurt finances.
Do we know what the fallout? Do we know the results of that?
The results are still happening. It's ongoing. The accumulation is ongoing. And the people of Japan are now beginning to wake up, because professors and scientists and experts are coming out and saying our government's been lying to us. Here's the real story. And they are in a panic over there. And there are people here that are educating themselves. There's a site called Any News, ENE News, where they will find the articles and the real story that's going on by the experts. And
that's interesting, because we had a real surge in the Kayane company. Japan is one of the leading it is the leading network marketing company in the world. And this product, they were purchasing so much of it, and still, and somebody had suggested it was because of the fallout, but I didn't have enough information to know. But they were buying this. They still are. It's flying off the shelf, so to speak.
Other people in the natural health. Zeolite is another thing that's flying off the shelves going to Japan, because you take that internally and it helps to bind the radioactive isotopes, the internal emitters, and wash them out of your body. And that's very, very good.
Well, that's what these products do also.
Oh, wonderful.
They go into your body.
Anyone listening in Japan, please buy these.
Yeah, they have been.
There are a lot of good things out there that people are using. But I have health problems, so this affected me. People with health problems. I had a lot of family members die last spring. There were a number of them that were either diagnosed with cancer or already had cancer, but they were told, you have 6 months, you have a year, and they were gone in weeks. It was shocking, and I heard that all over the world. But these figures won't be added up and shown to be a result of Fukushima because the medical industry won't allow that.
They won't allow it. Okay, so we're going to run out of time here because we've only got about 15 minutes, and I want you to get to all of this that's on the table
Okay.
here. Okay.
First, I want to quickly tell how I came up with this and why. So I began studying all of this. And a couple of weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night in a terrible rainstorm, barely able to breathe. And I have some health concerns, and part of it includes my lungs. I struggle with that. And so I was frightened. I went out to the living room, and I was sitting up straight, just trying to open my lungs and breathe. I got on the internet, and I found a map projection from Norway showing xenon plume projection, very heavy over Utah right then. That rain brings it down exponentially, that radiation. People should have been staying out of the rain. They knew that after Chernobyl. There's a lot of hard evidence on that. And I couldn't breathe, and I was panicking. 2 nights later, it happened again with rain.
So walking in a spring rain is not necessarily healthy.
It wasn't last spring.
Oof.
And so I knew I had to do something. And I recalled 2 articles that I had read a week or 2 before that. One of them was about how NASA is using a certain technology to protect the new spaceships that they're preparing for outer space that will protect these spaceships from radiation in space. And I had been interested when I read that because I thought, oh, there's Nibley's pattern right there. Every piece is in place. Fascinated by it. And another one that I read about how scientists are protecting delicate instrumentation using the same concept. And so I understood and knew. Nibley talks a lot about alchemy, about the alchemists and how they would try to get the proper combination of stones, semi-precious, especially the blues and the greens, or at least the iridescence blended within the stone, these sacred stones. And he said that there's physical and spiritual protection from these. He talks about the alchemists trying to put together the copper and quartz and all of these stones in a special way that will bring better health. And he says that's what their main goal was, not to make gold. He talks a lot about it in his last book. There's one chapter just on these sacred semi-precious stones, especially the blues and the greens, the turquoises. And
so you began thinking.
I began thinking, and I put it all together in a system of jewelry because I knew that you had to have the 4. I knew you had to have on the 4 outer structural places of the wrists and of the ankles or the hands and the feet, and I made jewelry. All of that terrible tickle last spring in my throat that I had till then, the tickle and the cough and the headache were gone instantly when I put these together in a system.
The first time I met you, there was a lady with me who's my neighbor, and she put on one of the very large, we're going to show, well, your bracelet is one of the larger ones. She put on a larger one. It had several, is it magnets?
Yes, it has magnets
in it.
This
and
is jade.
she had them on just a few minutes. She said, I have to take them off. I have to take them off. It was too strong for her.
Right.
For me, I could feel an energy boost.
Right.
For her, it was too much. And so she wound up getting something smaller. But go ahead and let's finish with your theory. And then I want to show these and talk about them so the radio audience will be aware of what they are. And again, they're going to want to find you with a phone number or something.
www.magnaquartz.com. MAGNAQUARTZ. Magnaquartz.com. Okay. We're set up now. And so what happened is I put this on. I could breathe. Twice I forgot to wear it at night. I woke up with that tickle, not able to breathe well, putting them on instantly. I mean, within 10 seconds, I was breathing well, and the tickle was gone.
She had that kind of reaction. I'd never seen anybody have immediate reaction to it. Mine was more subtle, and
most people it's subtle. It's at the energy level.
I have ordered some from you, and you don't have them with you today, so then I have to go track down Sharon Anderson and get them from her. Finally, I mean, she's had them ready for weeks, and I just need to go do it. So I do understand there is some protection, but if you could tell us more, I would appreciate it.
Well, what I did is I understood from the pattern why this worked with all of the ancient understanding.
Nibley's pattern.
Yes.
That he had discovered.
He had discovered it, and I have the ancient Hebrew writings of the Sefer Yetzirah and the Zohar and the Bach here to explain this. I have all of the Egyptology to explain this, and lots lots more. But I knew I needed to get the science, the hard science for people. I have the science, and we have a science tab on the website that explains the science that I don't have time to to explain here. But let me just give a little part of the science. It's called the Picasso effect, and it was discovered by Pierre Curie, the husband of Marie Curie, and they would work on it together. And he discovered that when you put a force against a piece of quartz, then it would put pressure, distort that quartz, and it would put out voltage.
For our listening audience, this is a piece of quartz around her neck on a little silver chain.
Yes.
And it's about an inch long and maybe a half inch wide.
Yes.
Okay.
And they worked with creating magnetic fields in a biofield or in a lab around the quartz that would cause a distortion, create this voltage that would interact with the magnets out there in the outer field. You shouldn't have the magnets on the torso or the head of the body. They have to be on the wrists and the ankles. I've had people put them on the ankles after on the wrists. Most people they'll have one magnetic bracelet, which is helpful and nice, but it doesn't create a field, this field of stability that creates this oscillating, circulating, wonderful biofield that we already have, and it strengthens it around the centerpiece of that quartz, which creates a wonderful effect, and it creates a plasma field between the outer bioshield and the inner piece of quartz, and that ionization moves around electrons. Every time an electron moves, it gives off energy. We feel that energy. People are energized with this system.
It's true. So then you've covered your whole body this way and this way. You've got yourself covered, and you're physically and spiritually protected.
Well, we can do bad things spiritually. You still have to. It doesn't take the place of the temple. It doesn't.
But it's more the physical protection.
Yes, it's the physical protection, but it also does. I feel more in tune. And I have noticed that my intent, my conscious thoughts become stronger. So if I try to be positive, it's very, very easy to jump to an extremely positive state. My husband, who suffers from clinical depression, has had a tremendous lift in that. And some of the other people that we've sold to have had help in depression. I've been able to go to sleep at night instead of laying awake for 4 or 5 hours every single night. We didn't anticipate the health benefits, and we have to be careful. None of this has been evaluated by the FDA, but the benefits that we have felt, me personally and as a family, and that we've been hearing from other people, has been surprising.
Okay, so a couple of questions. Let me go back and give the address for information on Nibbly. It's understandingnibbly@gmail.com. And again, a phone number to call if you want to get more information. Joy just lives a few minutes away from me. The number is 801-362-9552. 801-362-9552. Now, in our radio audience on KHQN, you won't be able to see this, so I'm going to try and describe. In fact, you describe what it is.
I'll describe
my
this.
trying isn't very good. You're in over my head with some of this stuff.
You haven't seen this. You haven't heard about this. This is fairly new. People keep asking, will this protect my children? My children won't wear the jewelry. Some of the children are, but some of them have a teenage son that's stubborn and doesn't want
quartz, my dear.
That's for actually a small room system. We have them far, far bigger than that. That will be for a whole house, huge like this.
So you hang it in the home.
You hang it in the center. Now, this is based on also the things that I learned from Nibbly and from the Chinese.
Under my chandelier, or
that's where I put it now. These wooden casings, hardwood oak casings, that are beautifully designed by my husband. The larger ones, and they have the copper that we also have on the jewelry. They have everything.
They have all kinds of unique scrolling and drawings on them.
Right. It's a beautiful leaf pattern. And the bigger ones for the house, they have beautiful bead coppers and decorative copper. They're really quite beautiful. And they have gigantic pieces of quartz.
I'm going to turn these up so the camera can see. Okay, we're not either one of us talking in the microphone, so the technical people tell us we got to quit wandering around here.
Okay, I'll quit wandering.
Okay, so these you've shown, they're glued down so we can see them, right?
They're epoxy tightly, yes.
Okay, and so now do these mean something specifically? Yes. All right, let's go through some of the colors there and what they mean.
Very much so.
And let's do this again, give this address out online.
www.magnaquartz.com, MAGNAQUARTZ.
Magna quartz.
Magna quartz, and they can see pictures of these. We have the smaller system like this, and then the larger systems.
Well, would I just hang this on a wall? Could I do that?
Some people will want to hide it because they'll not want anyone to know. They can put it under their shelves or on the floor in the 4 cardinal directions, but it actually works best if you hang it on the wall. It works the very best if you put it up a little higher, and best of all, if you have it touch where the ceiling meets the wall, up on the wall. You put it in the 4 cardinal directions according to color.
Okay.
Because each of these stones put out a different wavelength of energy, and we know this in quantum physics. And according to what that wavelength is, it has different properties. It will do different things. They interact and work in a way that interacts with the centerpiece, which has the jade and the jasper.
So I would have ideally one of these and 4 of those?
Yes.
Okay.
4 cardinal directions.
Okay. In one room, they could all be in one room.
This is for a room. We make the really large ones for a home. You can put them outside. You can put them in your garden if you don't want radiation in your food that's growing. And the really large ones are very powerful. So you don't want to order a really powerful one for a room because it can make you feel a little loopy. We design them for the square footage so it's right, but it creates a field of protection from electromagnetic chaos. The EMF is one of the biggest dangers that we have in our modern world, and this will protect us. We won't feel that negative effect from our computer, from our iPads, all of the things that we have nowadays, the router, even outlets, refrigerators, everything you have. This will grab that energy and bring order out of chaos. And not only that, not only will protect you, it will lift your spirits. We were working on a huge one the other day, my husband and I, and he said to me, "Do you feel really happy?" "I feel really happy." And I said, "Yes, I do." And we kept saying it all evening as we delivered this system to our client, and we kept saying, "It feels like Christmas." And we realized because we were right in that really powerful field, it brought a feeling of euphoria that we missed so bad the next day that we set up a really strong one the next day to just enjoy it for a while.
Okay, so ideally I would have these 4 or something like it,
Yes.
the large one, the large quartz, and this is beautiful. It has pearl on the top, and I don't know what that is.
That's jasper, and then there's jade. This is jade, the small ones, and then the one in the middle. They have to be the yellow gold. It's very important to get the wavelength
colors
of
are
that
important.
color.
And
Yes.
then let me have those that you've got right in
All
front of you,
right.
because I have the ones you are doing for me. And look, they do have the magnets all the way through them. So, oops, these are for... Okay, I've got them attached to each other. So they have a magnet clasp. So you just
Most of them don't have magnet clasps. The ones with some of the big jewelry do, so we can get enough magnets on there, and also have the big, beautiful stones and decorations.
I don't know how much of this you can see, but they are holding each other. So,
And then there's the smaller ones for daily wear that you can sleep in. This is turquoise all around. I wear these daily, and they're so easy to work and play and sleep in.
Let's just say are you going to have these at the seminar? Let's start there. So we'll have them at the seminar. For those of you that want to come to that, please share information with your friends. We would appreciate that. And also, can people have private parties and just say, "Come over and bring this and tell us about it," and
You
spend
bet.
an hour? And
You bet.
and they get a little reward for having something?
They'll get a full system.
They get a whole system if they have it there.
Yes.
You want to come into my house?
Sure.
Come on to my house. Yeah, okay. All right. Now, we've got a question. It was, what about pyramids, the shape of pyramids? Does that mean anything?
Tremendous amount. It means so much. It sets up an energy field again, and I will be talking about pyramids in the seminar. Brother Nibley does talk about the triangle and what it produces. The number 3, there's a great deal to those 3 points. And let me tell you something. Those thousands of people didn't spend all of the time building the pyramids just to bury a pharaoh. That wasn't what they were doing. They were doing it to set him up as a centerpiece like the throne, to order his kingdom and bring about organization out of chaos, because the eternities are organized.
Right. We do know that. All right. So let's give information all over again, because you've got so much stuff going on in your life. I can't believe it.
A lot more than this, but I'll spare you.
Oh, come on. Tell me what else. I'm just curious. What else?
Well, I've developed something called a mat circuit, which is for the health. My daughter, Jenny Anderson, is a massage therapist. I've been doing reflexology and applied kinesiology for 30 years, and our son Brian works with us. And again, the number 3 working together, working on people on this mat circuit, we have had astonishing results in helping people's health.
Thank you. I know she's got a lot more going on. We're going to talk her into coming
We
back.
offer special also.
And we've got she's got specials. She's got gifts going on. I'm Pat Sheranian, and thank you for being with us today. My wonderful guest has been Joy Bischoff. We appreciate your coming and spending time with us. We appreciate your knowledge and the years of study. We appreciate KHQN, and for Kent Vorkink, who owns the UtahValleyLive.com. This is Pat at pat.utahvalleylive.com. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you. Have a healthy day and a safe day. Bye-bye.